For me, every toolkit I've ever built has been shaped by the tupuna or the taonga I've worked with and the communities who trusted me with their stories. This isn't just technical, it's relational, it's restorative, and it starts with knowing what tools you carry.
Welcome to the Taonga Files, the podcast that reconnects whakapapa, mātauranga, and the journeys of Taonga Māori. Ko migoto iria ahau.
Ko Amber Aranui tēnei, through research, Taonga speak, revealing where they've travelled, who they've touched, and what they carry.
So let's step beyond the register as we uncover stories that shape who we are.
These stories were never lost. They were just waiting to be found.
Kia ora koutou and welcome back. Today we're diving into something every provenance researcher needs, whether you're working in a museum, a community archive, or independently. And that's your Provenance Research Toolkit. This isn't just a box of tools. It's a way of thinking. It's a methodology, a commitment to truth-telling, to restoring dignity, and to reconnecting taonga and tupuna with their people.
I love the idea of a toolkit in which both tangible and intangible gear is accumulated, key resources gathered so that we have what we need to undertake that deep dive we call provenance research. Across the world, researchers are refining their methods, building new infrastructures and shaping how museums and communities understand the journeys of taonga and ancestors. So let's break down what actually goes into these toolkits. Just a quick note, no two toolkits are the same. They're shaped by you, your context, your responsibilities, and the communities you are accountable to. So treat this episode as a set of ideas and prompts to help you develop the toolkit that fits your practice.
So before we get into developing our toolkits, I think it's important we spend some time understanding what provenance is, not so much from an academic perspective, but from a real world point of view.
Provenance is a term used to define the source or origin of something. In the context of museums, provenance can refer to the origin of an object as well as its ownership history. I think about provenance as a sort of whakapapa. It can be visualised as a sort of genealogical tree, demonstrating connections, journeys, and histories that have at times been severed. And it is the role of the provenance researcher to reconnect those missing or severed sections of this tree, which makes up the story of a taonga or a tupuna across time and space from past to the present. Provenance research began in the art world with the collection of information relating to the movement of objects from the time of its creation through to its sale and or exchange and up to the present day. This provides a type of pedigree of ownership as well as confirming authenticity. Provenance research has been used by many museums around the world to undertake in-depth investigations into paintings that might be related to the Nazi-era art looting of World War II. Films such as The Woman in Gold and The Monuments Men have actually brought to light the importance of provenance research and the returning of art back to their rightful owners. And also I've just recently read a book which might be of interest to you, which looks at just that, and that's called The Art Spy. The same research approach has also been used to learn more about taonga and other objects in museums. Today, provenance research around the world is increasingly being used for repatriation purposes. Provenance research is what links the past with the present, the ancestor with their descendants, and their whenua or their land. I am biased when I say provenance research can be the key to successful repatriations and reconnections with taonga in the present, and I think they will continue to be in the future. And we've seen in this season of the Taonga Files how crucial provenance really is.
We need to discuss the vessel and what your tools sit inside of. And now this is not a physical object, although you can have that. But what I'm talking about here is your methodology and your why, because understanding your methodology, your purpose and your positioning justifies your process and the tools you're going to need.
For me personally, My methodology is centered around kaupapa Māori-led relational methodology that is decolonising, values-led, and accountability-focused. This is based around my own personal ethics. This positioning recognises provenance not simply as a chain of legal ownership, but as a living history of relationships, of responsibilities and obligations that connect to taonga, to tupuna, to communities and to places. So with this in mind, I tend to prioritise Indigenous authority and knowledge systems, ethical accountability to originating communities, and transparency about gaps, silences, and colonial impacts. I'd like you to think about your own methodology, about the work you do or what you want to do in the future. Where does your positioning stem from?
Tell us about identifying methods in order to know your process.
Okay, well, while the types of information that we are looking for doesn't change greatly, the ways in which we undertake research to uncover information is becoming increasingly diverse and technological. Though in saying that, physically looking at archives and museum records will always be required, but the way in which we access them may vary. Before you even open a notebook, you need a framework. So for me, provenance research sits on 6 pillars: historical and documentary analysis, object-based investigation, community engagement and consultation, digital and scientific methods, law and ethics, and above all, self-care and empathy. This is your compass. Without it, the work becomes reactive instead of intentional. With it, you can move through complexity with clarity. Let's start with the fundamentals, the tools that never go out of style. These are your core research tools, your notebooks, your iPads, your laptops, your reference material, whether that's physical or digital. And these can be based on colonial, scientific, and museum histories, as well as ethics and law, depending on your subject matter and your context. We also need something to map the process, tracing the movements of our research focus. These are the tools that help you write the biography of an object or an ancestor. They are simple, but they are very powerful. And then we have our analytical and technological gadgets, the figurative or literal magnifying glass needed for close examination, recording devices to capture visual images such as archives, and audio like oral histories. This is where the detective-coded energy comes alive, because sometimes a single handwritten note in a curator's field notebook, a place, a name, a date, it can unlock an entire journey of a taonga, and that's why these tools matter. Our scientific and digital resources, including archives and databases, are really important for the toolkit. Portable UV lights to locate much faded writing and the ability to decipher it. As we all know, provenance research today is becoming deeply digital. Data curation is now a core skill. It's not just about finding information. It's about making it usable, searchable, and visible for communities and researchers. Other scientific techniques used for dating, identification, and provenance can also be valuable tools. And we should all have a basic understanding about what they are and what they can and can't do. And we'll share more about these techniques in season 2.
And perhaps even more important than knowing these techniques yourself is knowing where to go to consult with people who use them and to create relationships with these people.
Absolutely. Our next important part of our toolkit is our networks. We all need networks, like-minded people, comrades in arms. Consult with your colleagues. You know, there are plenty of us out there and we are spread all around the world. So create your networks of like-minded people. A great example of this is that I've become part of an international network of people I deeply respect and look up to. From this network, I saw the need for a similar network actually to be created in Aotearoa. And along with 2 other colleagues, we developed the New Zealand Repatriation Research Network in 2018. And we're still going strong. And this network is really key for repatriation mahi within Aotearoa. Engagement strategies and ethical considerations, knowing how to respectfully engage with our communities. We have community consultation guides in various different forms, and these exist either with communities. I mean, you can contact universities. They have great ethics in terms of how we consult with people. But yeah, look for those guides. And it might not be a physical little handbook, but there will be kōrero out there, whether it's on iwi websites or runanga websites, in terms of how people would like to be engaged in that meaningful consultation, I think is really important. And knowing actually what ethical and legal considerations you might need to deal with along the way, I think is also very key. Being up to date on the laws in each country and the policies of any institution, I think, are key, particularly if you're looking at repatriation. And this is where provenance research becomes relational and not just technical. Provenance isn't about origins, but it's about identity, dignity, and reconnection. This work has shifted from providing authenticity to also including uncovering the circumstances of removal and supporting repatriation claims. And our last pillar, which I think is the most important, looks at empathy and self-care. And I think it's something we maybe don't think about enough in the work that we do. And I feel personally really strongly about this, is that our toolkits require empathy for the subject of our research and for the communities who connect to them. This, I believe, is a tool that we absolutely cannot do without. An inquisitive mindset is essential, with the ability to explore issues from multiple perspectives and conduct broad research so that we can narrow down a focused line of inquiry. Just as important is a commitment to self-care, recognising the emotional, spiritual and physical demands of this work and the need for systems of support to protect your own well-being. And we've talked about this in previous briefs in this season's podcast. This work is demanding and it's emotional, and we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. So developing your own process of investigation is key. We all work, analyse data, and come to conclusions in our own way. Figuring out what works best for you in the most efficient way helps to determine your process. Your toolkit should support a clear and repeatable process. For example, define the scope of your research. Examine the museum records. What do they have and how do we access this information? Investigate archival and historical sources to provide a wider context. And sometimes you need to read through documents just to confirm that there's nothing there of any use. And just for those of you out there, I know many of you researchers have gone through untold documents and found that there's nothing of use there, but this is still important because at least you know where you don't need to look again. Consult with communities and experts. It's best to go into a situation knowing the context, having some idea of what you're getting into before you talk to iwi and hapu. You know, you need to make sure you have done some initial research and try not to go in blind. It helps if you develop some key questions to ask as well. Trace movements and ownership. This can take some time to figure out and may even move across the continents. Document and verify. Try as much as possible to confirm the information that you've uncovered. And lastly, prepare a report of your findings. This could be for a repatriation claim or to identify further research or for a community's archive. So each step builds upon the last, and each step strengthens the story. We need to also talk about some of the challenges that we face. Your toolkit needs to prepare you for the realities of this work, such as incomplete or lost records, conflicting histories, ethical and legal barriers, scientific limitations, and cultural sensitivities and access issues. These aren't obstacles. They're reminders that provenance research is slow, it's relational, and it's deeply human. It requires patience, collaboration, and sometimes humility. What is the future of provenance research? From multilingual research in Russian archives to digitized field books in Aotearoa To export permits in Australia, our toolkits are ever expanding. The future is interdisciplinary, it's community-led, it's digitally integrated, and it's ethically grounded. So some of you might be asking, why does this toolkit even matter? This toolkit isn't just for research. It's for restoring identity. It's for returning dignity. And it's for reconnecting taonga and tupuna with their people. That's the heart of this work. And that's why we should build these toolkits with care.
So think about the tools you already carry and the ones you still need. Your Provenance Research Toolkit isn't just a set of tools, it's a philosophy. It's how we honour the past, navigate the present, and shape a more ethical future for museums and communities. Build your toolkit with intention, and the stories will reveal themselves. Kia ora and thank you for joining us today. If you found this helpful, share it with someone who's building their own toolkit. Mā te wā.